fans. Welcome back to Rail Fan 76. My name is Dr. Anwar Youssef Dunbar. I am the content creator and the owner of this channel. I want to start off by thanking everyone who has started watching the content here. This is a young channel and I am new to this rail fanning sector, so this is I'm learning as I go along. So I want to thank everyone who's watched the content, everyone who has liked the content, and everyone who has subscribed up to this point. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. Well, alright, this video is going to capture a short train ride I recently took from Washington Union Station to the Baltimore Washington International Station out in, I think that's Glen Burnie, Maryland. It's further up towards Baltimore. As I described in one of the opening videos of this channel, being a Buffalo, New York native, I do travel between Washington, D.C., where I live right now, to the Buffalo area quite a bit, which is where I'm from. And so, you know, with this being the capital of the United States and a major hub, travel is a big deal here in the DMV, as we call it. We have 3 major airports. And you have 2 commuter rail lines, the VRE and the MARC train, going in and out of this area, north and south. And you have Amtrak. This is the southern, well, it's on the southernmost region of the northeast corridor, which spans from, well, the electrified portion spans from Washington, D.C., up to Boston, but I believe there's a non-electrified portion which spans from Washington, D.C. down to the Norfolk, Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach, Richmond area. So correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I think that's considered part of the Northeast corridor as well. In any case, getting around here is a big deal if you live here, but also if you're flying out of one of those 3 airports. The metro system is now critical in air travel here as well. They just completed a part of the WMATA system going out to Dulles Airport. But depending upon where you're flying out of, train travel can help you out quite a bit. So when I fly to Buffalo, oftentimes I like to use Southwest. I think Southwest treats its customers the best out of all of the major airlines. And going out of BWI, the Thurgood Marshal Baltimore Washington International Airport, there are many flights going up to Buffalo, direct flights. You're up and down in about 45 minutes. So oftentimes when I go back to Buffalo, I like to travel on Southwest going out, and when I come back I like to travel on American coming back into Reagan National Airport. It's just more convenient to get back to my home here in Northern Virginia. In any case, the BWI Airport is about 45 minutes away from Northern Virginia where I live, and depending upon the time of day that you go, it can be a pain in the ass to get there. If you go during the daytime, on a weekday, or on a weekend, going up and down the Baltimore-Washington Parkway is, well, that can be quite a task. And so the only other option is to take the train. So if you go during the day, you have lots of options. You could take the MARC train, or you could take any number of Northeast regional trains. And if you go, but if you go early in the morning, you have to get to Union Station from where I live. If you go during the day, particularly in the morning, there are a number of trains that leave out of the Alexandria station here in Northern Virginia and that can take you to the BWI Airport. But if you leave early in the morning, you have to get to Union Station in order to get one of those trains. So in this particular video, I left early in the morning. I told my mother I would help her paint the garage that day, and then 2 days later I went to the Buffalo Bills game at Highmark Stadium to see the Bills play the New York Giants. But I had to get to Union Station early in the morning, so I took an Uber, and then I was able to get to BWI Airport pretty easily. So what you're about to watch is my early morning trip to the BWI Airport, and then there's also some footage of me flying from BWI to Buffalo. So I hope you enjoy this video, and yeah, I'll see you on the other side. It was a cool early fall October Friday morning in the Washington, D.C. metro area. I promised my mother I would get home to paint her garage that same day because the forecast called for rain on Saturday. I could have easily stayed in bed and taken a later flight out of BWI, but Southwest Flight 2064 leaving at 8:45 a.m. was a little more in my budget than any of the late morning or early afternoon flights, so I got myself up and got moving. If you're taking one of the early trains out of Washington Union Station, you'd better get there on time as the trains leave promptly at that hour unless there's an issue out on the Northeast Corridor somewhere. Northeast Regional Train 130 was departing at 6:30 a.m., so I was sure to call my Uber ride early enough to get me there by 6 a.m. Union Station is a beautiful pearly white structure with Roman pillars and arches roughly 15 minutes away from the United States Capitol. The main hall near the taxi and Uber drop-off point is beautiful and cavernous. In the afternoons and evenings, it is packed with people coming and going. B. Smith's high-end soul food restaurant used to be in this hall, and I had dinner there periodically with the mentor and his friends. One time, a bunch of us got to meet the legendary Washington, D.C. Mayor, Marion Barry, who came in for a drink in his hat and raincoat. The middle concourse houses the ticketing counters where you can talk to agents when they're there. If you're there early in the morning or late at night, you can also purchase tickets from one of the many automated Amtrak kiosks throughout the station. You can purchase MARC and VRE train tickets too. If you're in need of a quick and sinful bite to eat, there are fast food restaurants on the lower level like Bojangles and Wendy's, though there are a few healthier choices around the station. There are also multiple retail shops and stores in the station. There is a McDonald's in the rear concourse along with more restaurants and shops, in addition to access to the WMATA metro system and commuter bus lines. There is a rental car kiosk and parking structure upstairs. There are monitors all throughout the station, but I like the ones in the rear concourse where the gates are. Train 130 was departing on track D16, and after identifying my gate, I walked down there with my fellow passengers to get in line. Now, I like the window seats so that I can soak up all of the scenery once the trip starts. After all, that's part of the fun of taking the train, right? If you live in Northern Virginia like I do, and you are headed north, you can get on some trains at Alexandria and get your window seat with no problem. If you board at Union Station, you are going to wait in line at the gate. It just depends on where and how long. We had a relatively small crowd that morning, not surprising considering the time. If you board in the afternoon and the evening, the lines can stretch all of the way down the concourse, literally. This morning, they started boarding us 10 to 20 minutes before departure. Going out to board the train is one of the most fun parts of any train ride, but particularly at Union Station. Just outside the gate, there is a small pre-boarding area, and then just outside from there are the trains, the tracks, and the signature sights, smells, and sounds of the trains, the tracks, and the railroad workers. This morning was a little bit more of a walk to our train. The side of train 130 they boarded us on was not lined up directly with the platform, so we had to climb into the vestibule in the traditional way. For some reason, I always find myself gravitating towards the quiet car. Most of the Northeast regional trains arrange the quiet car at the rear of the train just before the business class car. I was able to get a window seat on the eastern side of the train. Right across from us was another Northeast regional train leaving later that morning. As we waited to depart, I stared at the silver Bud Amfleet coach, pondering that these are likely the last days of them. I grew up with these coaches in New York State, and they have a soft spot in my heart. I also observed the flashing blue light of the station. We departed Union Station promptly at 6:30 a.m. Northbound departures from Union Station are fun, and the conductor did not waste time scanning my ticket on my Android phone. After departing from the platform, the train crept slowly over the complex network of switch tracks before emerging onto 2 to 3 tracks headed northeast. That complex network of switch tracks are underneath a complex network of overhead catenary wires, which provide the power for the engines on the Northeast corridor from Washington, D.C. to Boston, Massachusetts. You can't see them well in the dark, but they're there. Once leaving all the switch tracks and traveling underneath the New York Avenue Bridge, the engines usually throttle up and the trains speed along the tracks just next to US 50 in Northeast Washington, D.C. out into Maryland. The Northeast regional trains make one stop between Washington Union Station and BWI Airport Station. New Carrollton Station is located inside what we call the Beltway here in the Washington, D.C. metro area. It sits just inside Prince George's County near the Interstate 495 US 50 junction. We did not stop long and were off quickly further northward to our next stop. On the way to the BWI Airport Station, I watched the sun rise as we sped through all the commuter stations served by the MARC trains, such as the Bowie State University and Odenton stations. There is so much beautiful greenery, and there are many small towns on that strip. By the time we arrived at BWI Airport Station, it was daylight, and unfortunately, I had to get off Northeast Regional Train 130. After I got off Northeast Regional Train 130, I had time to spare, so I hung around to watch its departure. The two conductors made sure everyone who needed to got off and boarded the train. I have worked in offices and research labs my entire life, so whenever I ride Amtrak, I wonder what it would be like to work out on the high iron on the passenger or freight sides. I know there are days when railroad workers get tired themselves, but it sure looks like fun. After a moment, the conductors turned to one another and gave the signal, and probably gave a verbal go-ahead on their radios to the engineers at the head end of the train. After stepping back into their vestibules, their doors slid shut, and then the beautiful silver Bud Amfleet coaches sped away at an increasing speed. Northeast Regional Train 130 then disappeared around the curve. Just then, a southbound regional train appeared. Again, I had time, so I stayed and captured it. Then there was another one. Behind me, a MARC train pulled into the station, and as soon as its passengers got off the train, it continued northward behind Amtrak Regional Train 130. I watched both leave before getting my commuter bus to the Thurgood Marshal Baltimore Washington Airport. My flight was on time, and after grabbing some breakfast at the McDonald's on the A concourse, I boarded my flight and fortunately got a window seat just over the left wing of my aircraft. I used to hate flying, but I'm used to it now. It was a smooth takeoff and flight up to Buffalo, which took only about 40 to 50 minutes. I got to Mom's house and got the garage painted. Sure enough, it poured the next day, but I was dry inside watching college football. On Sunday, I attended church with my mother, and later that night, I attended my first ever Buffalo Bills game in Orchard Park. They eked out a win against a New York Giants team missing its starting quarterback. Let's just say the rest of the season has not been so nice to my hometown team. 2 days later, it was back to Washington, D.C. via American Airlines as described earlier. I did not know when my next train ride would be, but I certainly looked forward to it. Now, the train I took to BWI Airport, that was train number 130. That was a Northeast regional train. Those trains typically consist of all Amfleet but coaches. And the northbound trains usually have positive numbers, even numbers, and the southbound trains have the odd numbers. So that's what I did, and I was able to, when I got to the BWI train station, I was able to get some footage of some other trains coming and going, Northeast regional trains and a MARC train. So I stopped and caught footage of that, but I hope you enjoyed that. And let me know in the comments section if you live on the Northeast corridor or in the Washington, D.C. area, and if you use Amtrak to get to the BWI Airport often yourself. Let me know. As I always like to say when I end videos over here, automobiles and airplanes are necessary in our modern society. Riding on boats is fun, but my favorite mode/method of travel will always be on the trains and the railroads. Take care, and I will talk to you next time. Once again, if you're new, please consider subscribing to the channel and also smash the like button if you have watched this to the end. Take care. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.